everybody, and welcome. It's Friday, so it must be Connetics USA weekly show, Onwards and Upwards. Everything a healthcare worker needs to know about coming to live and work in the United States. I am your host, Tanya Friedman, and we are so excited today to talk about this very important topic, the cost of living in the United States. If you are interested in coming to the United States, please go to the Connetics USA website and apply online. And our team are waiting for you and can't wait to speak to you to see how we can help you and make your American dream a reality. I'm joined today by an expert panel who are going to be sharing their views, their information, their advice to healthcare workers who want to come to the United States as we talk about cost of living in the United States and how it might be different in different areas of the country. So I'd like to welcome now Patty. Hi, Patty. Welcome.
Hi, Tanya. Good morning.
Good morning. Great to have you here. And
Thank
then
you.
I'd like to also welcome Kay. Hi, Kay.
Hi, Tanya. Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to see you, Kay. We met in New York, it seems like yesterday, but it was a few weeks ago already.
Correct. Yes. I've already moved states after that.
Oh, yeah. And Kay's gonna be talking not only about New York, but also about Maryland. So we're really excited to get her viewpoint. I'd like to welcome James. Hi, James.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, James. And last but not least, Elvis. Welcome, Elvis.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay, so if you are joining us from anywhere around the world, please put your name and where you are watching into the chat. It's always so fun to see all the viewers around the world that are watching today. I know we have thousands of people who watch Onwards and Upwards. And if you are just joining us now, please make sure to stay on until the end of the show, because we will be talking about the IELTS raffle winner. We'll be announcing the name of the IELTS raffle winner. So please stay on. The IELTS exam will be paid for by Connetics USA. Once a month, we have a raffle winner. So we'd love you to stay on and find out at the end of the show who the winner is. Okay, so I see we have a lot of people joining us in the chat. And we're going to start off with some introductions. Patty, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I've been a nurse since 2012. And thanks to Connetics, I came to the US as a nurse. I had the chance to be in the US before. I studied here. I was here before with another career. But thanks to Connetics, I came as a nurse. And I live in LA, in Los Angeles, Southern California. So I will talk a little bit about the cost of living here.
Okay, so California, very desirable area to work in. Many international nurses here. So I think it's going to be really interesting to get your viewpoint. Okay, Kay, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? There seems to be some crackling noise. Can everybody hear okay? Oh, there it is.
I can hear that crackling noise too. Hi, everyone. Again, good morning. I'm Kay. I'm a traveling nurse for the past 16 years. And I'm probably one of the youngest traveling nurses when we started this. So I started in New York. I migrated in New York City when I was 22 and just started venturing out northeast corridor, northeast region of the United States, Connecticut, Boston, Massachusetts, Boston, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Maryland, what else? Upstate, Rochester. It's still part of New York. And now we just relocated back to Maryland, which is a Baltimore County. And surprisingly, I was surprised that I thought New Jersey was on the higher tax, but we are on the higher tax in Maryland here. But I was like surprised to wait a minute. But anyway, but again, everything is fun here. I can definitely help with the cost of living differentials among the different states here in the Northeast region.
Okay, so Kay's going to bring some valuable information because she's worked and lived in many of the Northeast states. and we'll be able to speak to the different cost of livings, because most nurses don't even know that there is a difference in cost of living when they come to the United States, right? Kay, did you know that?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I was once like that too. Yes.
Oh, in the beginning, you didn't know.
Yes, I did not know at all.
Okay, good. Well, that's why Onwards and Upwards is a great resource for so many nurses or healthcare workers that want to come to the United States, because this is where you can get free information and learn and educate yourself and empower yourself. James, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Good morning. Once again, I'm James Montegrico. I've been a nurse for 30 years. I've been in the U.S. for 20 years. From we heard someone from the West Coast and from the Northeast. I'm based in North Carolina, so I'll be giving perspectives about living the South and the Southern U.S. I used to be a staff nurse, a neurosurgical nurse, but I've been in academia for so long, so I'm currently in. Sorry, I have my cat with me.
Oh, I was going to say.
I'm currently an assistant professor at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. So I've been retired from the bedside. That's my current job. But I have had a significant experience in the bedside for so long.
Thank you. And I love your little cat, your little kitten at the back. Is it a girl or a boy? I think somebody's barking in James's apartment, James's house. No? Elvis, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, I've been living here in Fargo, North Dakota.
Oh, Elvis, I think we have a bad connection with you, Elvis. There seems to be like a crackling noise. If you want to maybe log out and come back in, that would be great. Elvis, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so while we're waiting for Elvis to come back in, I want to welcome everybody who's watching. Zabzabe is saying hi, Mariah, Ashley saying hi, Mohammed. Good afternoon from Nigeria. Interesting topic. I will get information from the source I trust. Thank you for this. We're happy to help, Mohammed. Dulce from Oman, B from the AE. Phoebe Daniel is saying hi. Stephanie from the UK, Diggs from Riyadh, Arlen from Kuwait, Ashley from Jamaica, Dan from Oman. It's so fun to see everyone from all over the world. Mark from UK, Rama, Lydia, Arlene from Jamaica. We have our regular visitors, Baby from Philippines, Purity from Kenya, Luxembourg. Wow, so many people watching from so many places. If you have questions today about the cost of living and how that differs in the different parts of the US, please put them into the chat and I would be happy to ask your questions about the cost of living. Amy saying, wonderful show, the cost of living in West Virginia, please. So Amy, we'll try and help you with that one as we progress in the show. Okay, so let's get started on the topic at hand. Today we're going to be speaking about what is the cost of living? How does that differentiate? And we're going to be talking about it in terms of housing, in terms of having fun, like recreation, in terms of transportation, the basics, kind of food and clothing, bills, cost of kids, taxes, lots of different topics that we're going to be covering. Elvis is back. Elvis, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
Okay. I think it was earphones, no?
Oh, okay.
So my name is Elvis. I'm from Brazil. I've been living here in Fargo, North Dakota, in the Midwest for 4 months now. I joined to Connetics team last year, and there are a bunch of new people coming here to Fargo and this area, and I'm gonna talk about some living costs here in the Midwest.
Okay, thank you, Elvis. And I think it's great that everybody on the panel comes from a different part of the world and also living in a different part of the United States. So it's really going to be interesting to hear the differences and the things that might not be different. Okay, so let's start off and just with the definition. What is the cost of living? because many nurses, when they come to the United States, come for many reasons, but money can be one of them. So it's important to understand what the cost of living actually means. The cost of living is the amount of money needed to cover basic expenses in a certain place and time period. The cost of living is often used to compare how expensive it is to live in one city versus another. Okay, so I think that's a great definition that we can start with. And I'd like to maybe ask Patty, before you came to the United States, did you know that there was different cost of living expenses in different states?
Yes, yeah, for me, I was aware because, like I said, I didn't come to the United States for the first time as a nurse. I studied here before, so for me, it wasn't completely new. Um, what surprised me the most was to know how different the cost of living can be inside the same area.
Ah, what do you mean by that, Patty?
So, for example, here in LA, uh, people always joke, right? If you want to buy a house or if you want to rent a place, what are the three main things you have to pay attention to that will impact your cost? Location, location, location.
Ah,
And that is totally true. You know, you can rent a place, a two-bedroom apartment. I know we're going to talk about it later. I'm just jumping ahead, but
yeah.
uh, for $2,000 or for $7,000. It depends where,
Ah, okay.
you know.
So that's a
So
very interesting point. We're going to be talking about housing in more detail and
yes,
really dig into that. But you raise a very important point that it might not just be even the states that are different, it might be the cities within the state that are different. And even within a city, you're going to find differences. So that can be very surprising. Ah, very interesting. James, before you came to the United States, did you give a thought to cost of living? Did you realize that there were any differences?
Yeah, I was pretty aware about the cost of living differences, but just like Patty, I was really surprised how it can be different, across different locations within the state, as you said, within the city. So we know that some places are cheaper and some are more expensive than others. It's just a matter of how expensive or how cheap it is to live in those. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've been in North Carolina here in the South for like 20 years, and that's one of the reasons what I like it here is the cost of living, rather than moving to those big cities. So yeah, I kind of had a perspective of how it was or how it is.
Okay. So for many people, it depends on your background. You might know about the difference in cost of living, or you might not. But on today's show, you're going to find out a lot more about it. Okay, so let's talk about some of the background factors to take into account when addressing the cost of living. For many nurses, when you look at a job offer, you will look at the rate, the amount of money that's going to be on that offer letter, and that will be maybe for some people a deciding factor. Kay, was it a deciding factor for you when you looked at the rate? You on mute. You on mute, Kay. You
Okay, thanks. All right. So when I signed up my first contract when I was 21 years old, when you're young, you don't really pay attention to these things. All you want to do is just party. so, so I have no idea. I just worked in the Philippines for like a year, and I was barely making money and barely paying taxes anyway. I didn't even get to file my first own tax return back in the Philippines because I did not even finish my second year there. So it was quickly that I left Philippines and not knowing the tax implications, and the cost of living. When I went to New York City, I'm like, wait a minute. My sister calling me back from the Philippines. Why did I use my credit card that's cost me $7 for just hamburger in Philippines? I'm a hamburger in New York City. I said, well, in the Philippines, that was only like about $1 something. Why are you eating $7 hamburger in McDonald's in New York? And I said, well, that's that's the normal price for
That's
this.
what you
So everything was from Philippines, Manila, jumping to New York City. There was a big difference of my cost of living. Absolutely. Living in Manhattan was one of the most expensive, probably, that I've ever lived in my whole life. It has pros and cons of it, but as a young person, I wasn't really paying attention until a couple more years when I started really travel going outside New York City. Then I realized, hey, a bag of grocery here in Connecticut, it was only $20, where a bag of grocery in New York will cost me $40 already. So then there realized that each state and each city will come with different information. I mean, cost of living. And one thing also I noticed that is, as a traveling nurse, we were given different numbers when it comes to pay package, when it comes to housing allowance and meals allowance. There was a big jump really from New York City. I mean, people going to New York City than going outside. So everything was cheaper for me after that.
it's all relative, right? It's all relative. So Kay mentioned really interesting about coming from the Philippines, from her home country, and the difference in cost of living. And we have a graphic of how the dollar compares to many of the home country currencies. So if you look there, Philippines, and Kay's from the Philippines, it's 56 pesos to the dollar. I come from South Africa. Right now, it's almost 17 rand to the dollar. You look at the Brazilian money. It's really can be quite a big jump coming. It's not like the money is equivalent. Elvis, when you came to the United States, going to North Dakota, how much money did you bring with you before you came, and how long before you started getting your first paycheck? Because that's also an important factor of immigrating, is that first few months.
I brought $10,000 because I wanted some money to give a down payment for the car, and to spend before receiving my first paycheck here. And I arrived here by the end of April. I started working at May 16th, and I received my first paycheck. It was, I think, 1 week after that, And then I spent about 4,000 in this period, this first period, paying the housing, and buying things and all this stuff,
Okay. So, and was that amount comfortable for you? Do you feel like, if looking back, do you think you would have done anything differently?
Oh yeah, it was comfortable. If I could, I would have brought more money, and then I could have done a really good down payment of the car. That's the point. But I think it was enough. I felt comfortable with this amount of money, and it was the money that support me for this first period. No problem at all.
Okay. So, so that's, important to know for anyone coming to the United States. Often the currency in your home country might be different to the US dollar. And those first few months, depending on the cost of living in that area, it might be comfortable, like in Elvis's case, or it might be more stressful. Patty, Kay, or James, do you have a different story to say in terms of that beginning part of before you start earning dollars, and what that was like for you? And were you surprised at the cost of living? Patty?
No, I remember when I first came and I was still getting adjusted with all that. And before getting my first paycheck, when I finished university and was getting moved to my apartment and getting everything settled, I remember like I would go to the grocery store and buy only like carrots, Diet Coke, pretzels. I remember I would be very like
Frugal.
Extremely frugal because I never knew like and certain things like but I again I was like super young and I really didn't care about food so but also I was conscious about the money.
Okay, so you had to be careful, but you still got in your vegetables, Patty, which was good.
Yes.
Your carrots. um, so I think that thinking about that, how much money to bring with you when you come to the United States, but also to take into account the cost of living, because again, for many nurses, they see on the offer letter a certain rate, but don't always take into consideration the rate in relationship to the cost of living and the fact that you're not going to be maybe earning a paycheck right in that beginning time frame. James, would you have any advice for somebody coming in now? I know you came in many years ago, but any advice for somebody coming in now when they are new to the United States and maybe not sure of the cost of living and how much money to bring?
Yeah, my advice would be, the good thing about coming to the United States during these times is, there's a lot of resources available for you to really look into. Like not like 20 years ago, we just based on what information we can gather from, from relatives, from friends who are living in the United States. Now you can Google, you can do like there's like a cost of living calculator. Like if you're offered different job offers in like different states, different parts of the country, you can actually make comparison. How much do I need to earn in the, like in New York versus if I will be in North Carolina or in Florida. So that's one resource probably that you can do. Look for like a cost of living calculator, and you can also have like those different tables that can help you decide. I know there's a lot of questions that they ask in social media groups about, is this rate okay? What might be okay in one state may not be okay to different states. So, like to give you a case, when I came in here, I was like, oh my God, why is this rate so low? But again, considering how it was in North Carolina that time, I said, I think it's going to be okay because I know when they offer those rates, it's based on the market value. I mean, the market, what's the prevailing market rate? Um, and so those are some of the resources that you can, the kind of thought process you want to use in deciding which state or which hospital to go to. Yeah, just use those online resources. It can give you a lot of information more than you think. And I think what helped me transition in terms of my expenses when we got here, of course that was 20 years ago, was that our hospital actually spoiled us. They even had to create like a task force to really attend to our needs. They found housing. It wasn't an apartment, it was a house. They gave us a silent bonus so we didn't have to really wait for our first paycheck. Um, I was able to bring with me my family right away. I had a wife and two kids at the time. So it wasn't really, I would say, hard to transition because of the support that the hospital provided. So one of the the pieces of advice that I can say is, ask the hospital what kind of support they will be providing you, as you transition, because that can make or break your first year in the US.
Yeah, that is great. Lots of things to unpack there, James. You've got some really good advice there, and I'm going to go through them. But the one thing that you said just at the end, really important, is to help through that transition when you've got that cost of living surprise for some people, is to see the package that you're getting from the facility and how they're going to be helping you through the transition. I know at Connetics USA, we work with every hospital because it's direct hire to make sure that there's some kind of a transition package. You also mentioned, James, about the differences in salaries, and I know that we have a graphic on the average salaries of RNs in various states. So the average salary is $82,750 or $39.78 an hour. However, if you look at the map, you can see that there are different averages per state. This is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So this is the average RN salary, and really interesting to see how it can vary from state to state. So good advice from James, not just looking at the salary of that particular state, but also looking at in terms of the cost comparison, the comparison of costs. And I know we have some graphics to put on now, where we can show you some of the differences. So we are looking here. This is from NerdWallet. The source is NerdWallet, and you can look at the difference. This is not specifically for a nurse, but to look at the difference living in New York City versus San Diego, where I live. The cost of living is 44% lower in San Diego than Manhattan, where Kay lived. We also have New York to Raleigh, North Carolina. The cost of living is 63% lower in North Carolina. So that's really an interesting one. And then looking at North Dakota to Manhattan to Bismarck, North Dakota, 64% lower in Bismarck, North Dakota, which is near to where Elvis stays. Elvis lives in Fargo. So, that is a great resource to look at the salary calculator before you come here. Do your homework and your research so that you know how much it's going to be and how much money you need to bring, especially in those first few months. Really great advice there. The other factor also to take into account is the tax comparisons. And Kay, I know you've lived in lots of different places, and we're going to talk about taxes in detail a little further into the show. But can you just give us like maybe an overview of tax comparisons in the US? Some states have income tax, some don't.
Yeah, so the three taxes that you really have to pay attention when you move to different states is, number one is your income tax. Number two is your property taxes. Number three is your sales tax. Different states will offer you without income tax, but they will have increased property tax and sales tax. So the three triangle of that is really rotating. One might be more and then the other two are less, or the one will be more or the other two less. It's like that. So it's just, the government is just compensating from one end if the other one is cheaper. So at the end of the day, you're still paying taxes, just different side of the tax. For higher income people, of course, if you live in a low or no income tax state, that's a big factor. If you are a person who's in a business of sales, then having business in low sales income tax will be beneficial to you. So again, those are the three factors that you will have to pay attention to: income tax, your property tax, and your sales tax. So for me, I used to live in New Jersey too, where I just recently come. We get hit both. We are the highest property tax in the whole US. That's about 2.2% of our properties. And the properties there is around 600,000 median. So what I'm saying about that is, I will tell you my mortgage is $2,000, but my property tax is $1,000 a month. So it's like technically 50% goes to property tax. But the good thing about that is we're not really on a bad shape either, because there's a lot of things that the government gives you or forgives you on your income taxes or sales tax or property tax. So they give you about $10,000 deductions at the end of the year. So you just have to know where are you going to reduce it, something like that. But those are the three important things that you have to pay attention. Florida might not have income tax as well as Texas, but then you will have to pay attention with your sales tax and your property taxes. Okay.
And we have on the screen a chart for everybody from the sources is from the balance, the 9 states without income tax, and how they structure things in terms of property taxes, as Kay was speaking about, or I see Tennessee's got a high beer tax, Washington has got high gasoline tax. So there are different factors in different states in terms of the taxes. So really, if we kind of break it down, in terms of cost of living, you're going to be looking at the salary that you're going to be making. You're going to be looking at the cost of living comparison, and you're going to be looking at the taxes, which are kind of the 3 main factors that we look at when you are deciding where you want to go live. Just a fun quiz. Does anybody know which is the state with the highest cost of living? Anybody know? If you do, put it in the chat. I don't see anyone in the chat.
I know that. It's one of my favorite spots to go.
What is it? What is it, Kay?
Should I share it? Hawaii.
Oh, there we go. Kay's got it. So Hawaii is the state with the highest cost of living. Does anybody know? Oh, there we go. Some people got it. Bray got it. Lani got it. Ireland said New York, California. You see, it's really kind of interesting. Those are states with high taxes, but not as high. Oh, there we go. Lots of people joining in now. A lot of people thinking it's New York, but actually, as Kay said, it is Hawaii. Cost of the state with the lowest cost of living. I see a few people have got it. Mari says Mississippi, and Alfred says Mississippi. Yeah, you are right. You got it. Ashley's got Mississippi. So the answer is the state with the highest cost of living. A lot of people think it's New York, but it's not.
Yes. It's not. It's not. I went to Hawaii. I'm from New York City. I'm from Manhattan. I went to Hawaii. I'm like, whoa, this is very expensive here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was surprised about it.
So really fun. But lots of people got it. Hawaii and Mississippi, the highest and the lowest. Okay, let's dig into each of the different factors. So there are a number of factors to consider when you look at cost of living. We need to look at the food, clothing, education, healthcare, transportation, taxes, additional expenses like utilities, Wi-Fi, insurance, all of those different factors, as well as the housing. So let's start talking about the housing and how that compares. And I see a lot of people have got into the chat asking about that in terms of renting and buying. So I'd like to ask everybody on the panel, can you give us an idea of the average cost to rent a 2-bedroom apartment in your city, as well as maybe to buy? Let's start with Patty.
Okay, so like I said, location, when we talk about Southern California and specifically LA, we have to consider a lot of things. Like we're talking about LA County, there are a lot of little cities around LA City that makes LA County. So, and you can have a lot of differences there between the coast and the desert. Location is key when you're talking about cost of living. We joke when we live in Southern California, whether it's San Diego, LA, Santa Barbara, that we pay the sunshine fee because it's always beautiful here. So we pay a lot to live here, but it's totally worth if the weather is a key factor. And that being said, the cost of a 2-bedroom apartment can go anywhere from $1,900, $2,000 up to $7,000 if you want to live in Bel Air, for example, which is a super fancy neighborhood here in LA. So it all depends. Doing this research, I found out that the neighborhood I live in is one of the most expensive. I didn't know that.
You didn't know that, Patty? Oh my goodness.
I chose this neighborhood because it was convenient. It was close to work. It's close to the beach, which for me, it's important. So I think it's important also to pay for your comfort. So I live in a very comfortable 1-bedroom apartment, but it's close to the beach. It's close to all grocery stores. It was close to my job when I first rented this apartment. So for me, it's perfect. It offers me comfort, and I prefer to pay a little more to have comfort. Of course, if I had kids, I would have to consider the school area. I would have to consider other things as well. But that's thinking about housing, that's the cost. To buy a house, particularly in this neighborhood, the costs are increasing. Why? Because this is an old neighborhood with old houses, and they are remodeling the entire neighborhood. So now when you walk around, you see these beautiful houses. So you see 1, 2, 3 old houses and one super modern, beautiful new house, and another 2 old and another brand new. So these increase the cost a lot. So you're going to pay around $800,000 for a two-bedroom house in this neighborhood. But again, you can go, and here I'm talking about 3 miles. If I walk 3 miles straight ahead, I'll be inside the ocean, in the water. So
So
I can move all the way east, um, and pay a lot less. So
okay. And that's your choice, right? So
it's a
that's
choice.
your choice. So there are pros and cons, it sounds like.
Exactly.
It's expensive, but you're paying for the great weather, the lifestyle. And if
Exactly.
that's something that works for you, that that's great. I mean, I live in San Diego. It's really expensive.
Yes, I used to live in San Diego too. San Diego is amazing. And I think one of the most amazing things about Southern California is that I always joke you can start your day up to the mountains, skiing, snowboarding, and surfing.
Yeah, that's
So
true. I never
that's,
thought of that before. You're 100% right. So
that's only Southern California offers. I love this place. So I can be a spokesperson for Southern California.
well, there you go. So you heard it from Patty. She loves Southern California, but it is expensive. So you've got to know that when you look at a rate, don't just look at the rate. Look at the rate in relation to the cost of living and the
Exactly.
taxes. And if that's a choice that you're happy to make, it can be a great option.
Yes, and just another thing, Tanya, sorry, but just when you showed the map with the RN salaries, like California has pays very well on average, but we have to consider that the cost of living here is high, and the taxes here we pay a lot of taxes too.
Yeah.
So in the end, excuse me, when we get a job offer saying that we're going to be paid X amount per hour, the nurses that are getting job offers now have to take into consideration that they cannot multiply that amount by the amount of hours, and oh, I'm going to take home $4,000, $5,000, $3,000. No, it's that minus
All the other expenses and costs.
minus the costs that you're going to have. So that is a very important thing to take into consideration and keep in mind.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Patty. I agree 100%. And that's really the importance, as I said, of onwards and upwards, because it's about, knowledge is power. If you know what to expect, it really gives you peace of mind to be able to plan accordingly. Because, for example, if you want to come in and buy a house right away, California is not the state for that, unless you're coming with a lot of money, and the exchange rate makes it even more difficult.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's really important to mention. James in North Carolina, tell us what an apartment, like a two-bedroom apartment, might cost today, and about house prices.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting question because one of the major issues that new nurses face is, deciding where to rent and whether they're going to rent or buy a house. So I can speak in my county, Forsyth County. Yeah, right now you can get a two-bedroom apartment for like less than 1,000, within 900 to $1,000, and for a maybe a more luxurious apartment, you can probably have at 1,200 to $1,300. So that is for an apartment. But if you're gonna get a house, the good thing about staying in North Carolina is the price of the house may probably get you about the same price with that of a two-bedroom apartment. So, like in our case, of course, that was 20 years ago, but it's still a similar or almost similar nowadays. Like we were paying this apartment $800, the house for like $800. That's why we decided to get a house in less than a year of staying in the US, because the house is going to cost us like less than 1,000. So you're just going to pay like $200 more. You already have your own brand new house versus renting an old house. So again, location. We have a good quality of life here, but the cost of living is low. So you get more bucks for your money. So um, yeah, the prices here haven't really increased compared to how it was like 20 years ago. um, it hasn't probably doubled, not like in other states. So it's really more affordable, so it's expectedly you'll get a lower hourly rate for an offer, but you will get, probably I would say, a better what do you call this, a better net pay, better savings because of the cost of living. And one thing I would like to say was that, I know in other states you really need to like have two jobs to pay a house.
Mhm.
I'm glad to say that, I never had to work overtime to pay my house, a brand new house here in North Carolina. So, I mean, it's a low cost of living.
Okay, so you bring up a great point, is that, you might, it's all about choice. So it depends what you're looking for and what's the best, going to be the best fit for you. Yeah, really, really important.
And
Albert,
if
yeah,
I'm
go
going
ahead.
to add just a little bit, I think what really also in our environment is education and healthcare are like the major services that are offered here in our um, area. So again, being an academic and being a nurse, my wife is a nurse, and my daughter eventually became a nurse. So I mean, we have the luxury of shopping for schools or universities and hospitals wherever they want to work. So again, it all depends on what are your priorities, what are your goals. So and that's another reason why, okay, let's just stay here. That's only for the cost of living, but the things that we need are right here. But last year my daughter went to live in Manhattan, so uh, that was a huge jump, on her expenses, not me, because I'm done with them. So yeah,
You're an empty nester, James.
I know.
You've just
Yeah,
got the
so
kitten. You've got the kitten to look after. No more children to look after.
yeah, a dog and 5 kittens. So that's where my
Yeah.
money goes now, for dog and cat foods.
Ah, okay. So that's what you're spending your money on these days. Kay was nodding her head when you spoke about your daughter moving to Manhattan. Kay knows all about that. Kay, talk to us a little bit about the housing, renting and buying in New York. And how does that compare to Maryland, New Jersey? Because I know you've lived in so many different
No,
states.
I know I live in Boston, I live in Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Maryland now here. I probably moved 13 times in my 17 years in the US. I would say
Wow.
that way. So it's,
Wow.
but again, each state will come with different offers. James mentioned you don't just go to state because of the rate. Each state will offer you different package outside what your income as a nurse is. Like for me, for New York City, if I work in those big name hospitals or prestigious, I put that in my resume. When I moved to Maryland, I was able to negotiate my income here, knowing that my work experience is in my resume that is really big. So now the Maryland hospital was able to actually match my income in New York City. So you
Wow.
get negotiating rates there. So certain people go to different states because of a reason. And it's not just mainly of pay. Sometimes they would sacrifice because I will go there for now, but later on I will move to the other place. Like a lot of people earn a lot of money from high income states. And then when they retire, they go to Florida. Why? Because in Florida, when they withdraw their retirement funds that are tax deferred, like their 401ks, their pension, when they move to Florida, they don't get income tax for that. So that's why there's advantage and strategies what a lot of people do. They earn income in this one place and then they retire in one place. So North Carolina is very known for those places as well where people retire because the income tax is very low, the cost of living is low. Um, there's one thing I want to point you guys here that is very, very helpful for us. As a traveling nurse, this is one place that we are guided how much the cost of living is. First, it's called the GSA. This is a federal guideline. When you go, Tanya, can I share a window here?
Oh, I think you can. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so I'm going to share a screen here. It's called GSA. This is a government website where they actually list the average cost of living when we go to one place. This is what a lot of truck drivers or traveling professionals also go. So when you type in Google, go GSA. GSA.gov is the website for that. This is again federal government rate there. So you can go here and you can actually put what's the zip code of the place you're going. So for us, me, if I put 21204, that is, or let's say here 10029 is my New York, what do you call this one? New York location. It will tell here what's the average by lodging by month. Sorry, by day. So if you see here, it's 286 per night is the accommodation. of a hotel in New York. That's the average that the government will actually give you allowance for. So this is just a guide, but it will give you an estimate here. Am I saying is this your monthly rent or monthly rate? No, this is not. This is when you book a hotel or a lodging or a housing, temporary housing in that location. So the my computation with that is probably about 30% to 50% of that will be your housing cost if you're gonna rent or buy a property. So I'm going to give you an example again. When you go back again to that, so the way to compare it is, okay, I was from New York, then I'm going to go move to Maryland. 21204 is my zip code now. So we're going to look at the difference of that as well. So in here, earlier it was 200 plus. Now here is 100. So you can see here actually the numbers that is actually based from the government research on how much the cost of living will cost for housing, and then as well as the food in here, 64 for each meal. In average, if you're going to buy it outside a restaurant, it's around $16. So
Okay.
that's a very helpful thing that you really want to put in.
Yeah.
This is very specific to the zip code of the United States.
Yeah.
So you are more particular in there because each zip code will have different cost of living here. Like Patty said, you just go 2 blocks. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
different amount of prices there. You go four
Correct.
blocks to the other side, it goes a different price as well.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Kay. Very helpful tool and something that many international healthcare workers may have no idea about that can really shed some light on the cost of living in the different zip codes of the different locations. Kay, how much would a two-bedroom apartment cost in New York City?
Oh, 2 bedroom. Oh my goodness, you're gonna be rich. You're probably spending around $2,500 to $3,000 for a two bedroom in New York City. And here in Manhattan, here in now in Baltimore County. I'm not in downtown Baltimore. I don't like it there. I'm here in the suburb of Baltimore. We're around looking about $2,000, about $1,500 to $2,000.
Okay, so there's that comparison. Elvis, how does rent compare in Fargo, North Dakota?
So you here, it's not a big city. We feel like a small town, but with all the structure, all the things that you need in a really big city. And then it doesn't matter the place here you're going to live because you have the cost. It's much the same. And then you can rent an apartment, 2 bedrooms, starting 1,000 until 1,600. You really can find a really good apartment here. I found a brand new apartment here, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, with a balcony, everything. But one thing that is important, if you are moving to Fargo, you need to take into consideration the weather here, because during the winter it's really freezing cold. And then it's important to look for an apartment that has a covered inbuilt garage, for example. Then you do not need to go outside and walk to your car during the winter. And another thing that's important here in Fargo, it's if you have kids, and then think about busing, because if you live less than 1 mile from the school here, you will not be able to have a bus driving your kids to school, and another important thing here when I was looking for an apartment was in-unit washer and dryer. It's some about comfort here. And pets, it's important too. Not all the apartments allow pets in the apartment, and sometimes you need to pay a small fee to have a pet here. But again, it's a really cheap city with a lot of structures, and you can find everything here. I think it's a right place if you are starting in the U.S. and you want to make money and you do not want to be too much concerned about the cost of living. Fargo, it's a nice place.
Yeah. Okay. And thank you for sharing that, Elvis, because it's not just about the money, the rate. It's, when you go with a lower cost of living, there might be other factors that you have to
Yeah.
take into account, like the weather. Some people love being in the snow. Some people, do all the snow sports,
Yeah.
and that can be a really fun experience. But for some people, it's like, I don't care if it's a low cost of living. I don't want that lifestyle.
Yeah.
Again, that's a very much a personal choice.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the time. We literally have 10 minutes left of the show, and I've got so many more things that we want to try and cover on the cost of living. So I want to move now to kind of like having fun. Is there a difference in terms of like having a glass of beer in the city, or okay, you spoke about like a burger, or the cost of a movie ticket or a road trip? I know for Elvis, he's new in the US, so might not have comparison. But for the rest of the panel, what is there a difference in what, like having fun, like recreational things, and how much they cost between the different states, or is it just more housing? Can you share with everyone your experience? James, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, sure. Having a family of four, I have two kids, and then growing up, we travel a lot. And of course, yeah, our baseline is North Carolina, and whenever we go to like New York, to Florida, Disney World, we go to the West Coast, LA, San Francisco, so we can feel the difference. Eating the same menu, having the same restaurant, it will be different. Where I mean, when you go to different places, so it's really a huge difference. Like, just a couple of summers ago, it's like, okay, I want to have McDonald's, but like, oh my god, it's how it costs in New York City. So you have to consider also like where you want to go. But again, it's a matter of preferences, of choices. So it's I would say it's really really very different. I think in all aspects, food, a bottle of beer. I might not want to go to Tennessee because they had the highest beer tax, right?
Yeah,
So
I saw that on that chart. I
yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah.
know that.
So yeah, you have to consider all those things. When we talk about cost of living, it is only going to be like the house or the basic necessities. It will be everything that you will be spending on. So from the burger to entertainment, to going to the movies, or hey, I want to go to Disney World or in Disneyland, or go to Broadway. So I mean, it's gonna take a huge chunk of your money, depending on where you go. So you have to really consider, and the main thing is you have to plan for those. You have to plan because, yeah, you want to have a coming to the U.S. You will be given like great experiences, but it comes with a cost.
Hmm. So you got to do your research. You got to, knowledge is power, and you've got to educate yourself about those differences. And uh, in terms of like transportation, for many international nurses, they have to buy a car when they come to the United States. And I think with buying a car, the car might not necessarily be impacted by cost of living specifically, but certainly gas is going to be impacted, or using Uber or Lyft or even public transportation. Kay, you've lived in a lot of different places in terms of transportation in different states. Did you find that different?
Very, very different. When I first arrived in New York City, yes, our rent is higher than a lot of states, but we didn't have to purchase a car because the public transportation is very good. Very, very good. Nobody drives in there. Even, the billionaire Michael Bloomberg doesn't even drive. He takes the subway or the cab. So everybody drives, I mean, everybody takes the public transportation there. You'll be crazy if you're driving a car or you own a car there, because the parking alone in New York City, a monthly parking will cost you around $250 to $300 just for the parking. You're not even talking about the car. So it made a big difference when I started jumping into travel nursing. I was still living in New York City during the weekend, but I would travel out of New York City on the weekdays. So what was the difference there? When I bought a car in New York City, my car was $350, and my insurance was also $300. because the insurance of the car will impact the cost of the premium of the insurance will have a big impact where you live. When you say you live in a low, cheap area, but the neighborhood, you will have to park your car outside and the neighborhood is not a very good area. Your insurance of the car is going to be very expensive. You might have a cheaper housing by $200 a month in compared to other places, but your insurance is more than $200 than other places. So it really catches up in other part of your life. And then when I was in Boston, the traffic is worse than New York City. LA is worse than New York City. Oh my God. It took me 2 hours just to drive 9 miles in LA, California. So those are things that you will have to pay attention as well. Not only the housing, not only the food, but as well as how much is the insurance is going to costing your car there and the gas as well.
Yeah.
And some states even you have to pay property tax on owning a car. Like when I was in Connecticut, I got a bill after 3 years. The state of Connecticut say you owe us taxes for owning a car, but what?
Wow, I did not know that.
So certain states you will have to pay taxes by owning a car, even though that car is depreciating. They will still tax you like you own a house. So you have to pay attention on those small details.
Wow, that's really interesting, and great information. Patty, in terms of the basics like food, groceries, clothing, what kind of bills can somebody incur on a monthly basis, and what can somebody expect to pay in Canada?
I don't think those things impact a lot the cost of living. Again, it all depends where you want to shop. I think what impacts the most, at least here in California, is housing, and more recently, fuel, gas for the car. But groceries, clothing, internet can be expensive. For example, where I live, there's only one provider, so they charge it as much as they want it. So right now, I'm paying $79.99 a month for internet, which I think it's outrageous. But there is only one provider, so there's nothing I can do.
Choice there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
But I don't think like groceries, clothing, cell phones, other things. I really don't think they are what impacts the most the cost of living. I think we have a lot of choices here.
Yeah. So there might be differences state to state, but at the end of the day, there's certain things that are going to have more weight in the cost of living expenses.
Yes.
Elvis, in terms of the basic cost of living expenses, were there things that surprised you? Because I know for many international nurses, and when they first arrive in the United States, they don't realize that you're going to have to pay insurance or Wi-Fi or utilities. Or were any of those things a surprise for you when you came to North Dakota?
So, not too much. I think that electricity and gas and internet, when I rented this apartment, it's all included. It's a good thing, It doesn't matter how much I gas or water I spend during the month because it's all included. And then I think here you can pay just $50 for an internet connection. But I think here in North Dakota, groceries really impacts, at least for my family, because I have a wife and 2 kids, 2 boys, they eat a lot. They're growing up. They are 10 and 14. They are teenagers.
Very hungry stage.
And then I spend at least 1,200 per month with grocery here in North Dakota. But cell phone is not too expensive. I spend 100 and 110 for all my family. And we have a lot of good thrifty stores here. It's a good tip, you can go to thrifty stores.
That's a good tip.
Find everything.
Yeah.
It really surprised me here in the US because we do not have this kind of thing in Brazil. And then you can find really good clothes. You can find furniture, electronics, everything in a good condition in the thrifty store. And then the basic you can find in a good supermarket too, but here the price of the fuel not too high. It's 3.79 per gallon now. It's good. I just spent about $60 per month because we do not have traffic jam here. You can reach every place in the city in 10 minutes driving. It's wonderful.
Compared to what Kay was saying in California, York City. So very, very different. We have so many questions. We have so many questions in the chat. And people are asking about the cost of living in Pennsylvania and Tennessee and Texas. And I wanted to go through that and pick the panel's brains and get their input. So we would love it if the panel would go into the chat after the show and just put in your comments for anyone asking about specific locations and the cost of living there. We also didn't get to talk about the cost of kids or taxes. So we're going to have to bring everybody back again for a follow-up show and continue this discussion. I wanted to thank James, Kay, Elvis, and Patty so much for coming on the show today. We know it can be a little scary to be speaking in front of thousands of people, but I always think this is just us chatting, and knowledge is power, as we always say. So it's really about empowering healthcare workers coming to the United States so that they know what to expect and they don't have negative surprises, and they know that when you're looking at a job offer, for example, you want to look at the rate in comparison to the cost of living and the taxes in that area, because it's not just looking at one aspect. There's a lot more to it and a lot of variation in all the different states. Before you leave us, I wanted to just remind everybody about the upcoming shows. So we have upcoming Onwards and Upwards next Friday, navigating RN benefits. I saw there was a question in the chat about healthcare, the cost of healthcare. So we will be covering that next week in a lot more detail, how to understand that. On the 9th, we'll be talking specifically about renting an apartment. Lots of tips and pointers on how to go about doing that. On the 16th, our legal panel will be back with the immigration Q&A. On the 20th, we have the Lafora talk show, and we're talking specifically about clinical differences in the ED in the US as opposed to other parts of the United States. And then on the 23rd, we have stateside, where we talk about a specific state and what it's like living there. And please feel free to download our free guidebook, the 50 state guidebook, which tells you everything you need to know about all 50 states. On Connetics College, the upcoming shows every Monday. Check the time in your location. We have Aspire doing a class on NCLEX class on the 5th, Swoosh and IELTS class on the 12th, NCLEX class with iPass with Rachel on the 19th, and then Niners will be doing a class on the 26th on IELTS versus OET or Pearson PTE. This is free information on the NCLEX and the IELTS for those nurses who still need to pass those exams, and there's much more coming on the Connetics College, which happens every Monday. And then, Connetics initiatives. All Connetics nurses get a free English scholarship. We pay for your course. Free NCLEX scholarship for selected nurses. Our $1,000 referral fee. If you refer a nurse with NCLEX, with $1,000 referral fee extended to September 30th. We also have our podcast, Nursing in America, Nurse Aid Program, Onwards and Upwards every Friday, Connetics College every Monday. And if you're an allied worker, medtech, medical lab technician, etc., we have positions for you as well. And before you leave, the IELTS raffle winner is, drum roll, Rodolfo Sotis Jr. So Connetics is covering the cost of your IELTS exam. Congratulations, Rodolfo. And we look forward to seeing you in the United States. Congrats. Thank you for everybody joining us today. We will be back next week. And thank you so much to our panel. Have a great weekend. Onwards and upwards, everybody. Bye-bye.